Hello and welcome to the OpsBase weekly webinar. My name is Mark and I head up product and client services here at OpsBase. Today we're going to look at three different advanced question types that aren't commonly used but are very powerful. The three different question types we're going to look at are the repetition question type, the raise issue question type, and the pause question type. Starting with the repetition question type, this is really useful when you want to ask the same question or the same set of questions multiple times within one checklist, within one op. There are three different repeat settings, and we're going to go into these in detail in just one moment. Those three settings are repeat a set number of times, repeat the questions an unlimited number of times, or repeat the questions for every item in a list that you specify. If we begin by looking at the repeat a set number of times, in this case on the screenshot you can see 3 times, it's really useful for circumstances such as a delivery check where you want your staff to take the temperature of 3 separate items, but you don't know what those items will be. So the questions will be, what is the name of the item and what is the temperature? And they'll have to answer those questions 3 times. The unlimited times is really useful when you're carrying out an audit or an inspection and you want to ask those same questions, like what is the fridge identifier, what is the temperature of the fridge, but because you're carrying out an audit, you perhaps turn up on site and you don't know how many fridges there will be. So it enables the user to say, I want to answer those questions again. I want to answer those questions again. And they can keep answering those questions until they've completed them for all of the fridges at a site. And then the last setting, which is to repeat for every item in a list. Here you can actually list and label all of the items like fridge A, fridge B, fridge C. And this is very good for checks and inspections where you have to answer the same set of questions, but you know the number of items. And because each item is named and labeled, you actually only have to ask one question, which is, what's the temperature? You don't need to ask for the ID or the label because it's already specified in the list. Now, I've prepared a 90-second video to just show how these would be set up and configured inside the web app. Here we have an example of the three different repetition types. On this first question here, we've selected it to repeat a set number of times, 3 times. So every time it's repeated, we're going to ask the same 2 questions, name the food item and enter the item temperature. Because we've decided in advance it must be repeated 3 times, we can see that in the app it's going to say number 1, food item and temperature, number 2, food item and temperature, number 3, food item and temperature. For the second repeating question, we've said unlimited times. This time we're going to ask what is the ID of the freezer we're checking and what is the temperature of the freezer we're checking. On this occasion, because we don't know how many times we want to ask the question, the user will be presented with a button that says add another, and every time they tap that, it will ask for the freezer ID and the freezer temperature. Finally, we're going to repeat the question for every item in a list. So we know we've got 3 fridges, A, B, and C, and because we've got those labeled already, we don't need to ask for the name of them, we can just ask for the temperature. So here we see that it's already named fridge A, enter the temperature, fridge B, enter the temperature, fridge C, enter the temperature. The next question type is the raise issue. Raising an issue is really good when you have your staff completing a checklist, completing an op, and something's not quite right. And what you want to do is create a follow-up action that can be completed separately. So examples of this might be a fridge temperature being out of range, maybe you're low on stock of something, but in essence, it's anything that you cannot resolve immediately or anything that needs another team to remedy it. Just to take you through the anatomy of this and how it's set up in the web app, I've highlighted 3 sections on the screen here in yellow. Looking at the right hand side first, you'll see at the very top it says log action. So this is a prompt that you provide to the user. Just below that, you'll see that it has the issue question type, and then you're presented with the issue settings. It may be a little bit faint to read, but the first one is a title. Now, this isn't the title of the question, that's the prompt at the top. This is the title of the issue that's going to come through into the system. And this is really useful so that when you're looking at all of the issues that are outstanding and not closed, you'll be able to understand what the issue actually was. Underneath that, we have the issue type. Now, this is going to be based on the issue types configured in your system. But when you choose an issue type, associated with that will be workflow to assign it to the right team or the right roles within a team. And then finally, we have the issue flag. Again, these are all configurable in your system. So here you'll see the prompt, and what it looks like on the right-hand side is the issue title, the flag, the issue type, and the prompt, and then the user would go and add a comment. Once again, I've prepared a 90-second video for you just to show you how this is set up in the web app. When you use the raise issue question type, ordinarily we'll start off with one or more questions up front. In this case, we've got the question, is the hand sanitizer full? If we answer no, we've configured this to have form logic to ask a further question, which is, well, if it's not full, can you replenish it from stock? Again, we've said if it's yes, that's fine, we carry on, but if it's no, we're going to ask more questions. So here we've answered no, which then raises the next question, and that question is the issue type. Now, what you can do is you can set a title for the issue. So when it comes through to the issues log, it has a sensible title that's relevant to the issue that you're raising. You can also choose the issue type as configured in your system, and based on the type, it will automatically be routed to the right team. And finally, you can also set an issue flag as well. What you'll see is there's also a prompt, and that prompt appears here. So as well as saying what the title of the issue will be, what the flag is, and which team it's going to be assigned to, you can also prompt the user before asking them to enter comments to further explain the issue. Finally, we're coming on to the pause question type. The pause question will prevent a user from answering any more questions in the op, and also it will prevent them from submitting it until a specific time has elapsed. One example of where you might want to use this is for something like a cooking or a hot hold process. I have a screenshot on the right hand side here that just shows how you would configure this in the web app. It starts off with an instruction. You're then having the question type. Here it's the pause question type that we've chosen, and then the settings for the pause question type. So you can choose how long to pause the op for in minutes. You can provide an instruction to the user that gets displayed, and after that time has elapsed, a message that will appear. So on the native app, so whether it's a mobile or a tablet, an alert will pop up and this message will display. So here what we're really saying is put the items in the hot hold, wait for 60 minutes. After 60 minutes has elapsed, an alert pops up on the screen, check for unsold items. At that point, the user will then be able to answer further questions in the op. So something like, have you now removed all of the unsold items, yes or no? And then they can submit the op. When they submit the op, you'll also get information about the time that was elapsed. So you'll understand whether or not, they actually removed those after 1 hour, or maybe it was 1 hour and 5 minutes or 1 hour and 10 minutes. So you can use that information as part of your auditing purposes. You'll have also noticed at the bottom here, there's a checkbox, which means that in some circumstances, you might want to allow the performer to set their own pause countdown. So those are the 3 different advanced question types that are not commonly used, but are powerful. So if you have any questions about those now, please type them in the chat. If you have any questions that come to you at a later date, please email us support@opsbase.com.